I'm gonna be giving you guys a comprehensive point of view walkthrough of how to build, assemble, install, and get a fresh engine running in a Subaru. It's gonna be applicable to any EJ-based WRX STI, Forester, Outback, any of those. So keep in mind going through this video, there are different ways to do a lot of the stuff that I'm doing, but this is typically the workflow that I will do when going through and doing these rebuilds for people. So if you have any questions, comments, or concerns when going through this video, feel free to drop them down in the comments below and I'll try to get to them as I can, but let's get into it. So we're gonna go ahead and clean the block surface and the head surface before we really do anything. That's why we kind of clean it. There's just a lot of kind of schmoo coming from the factory on these. And I mean, if you didn't clean it, it probably wouldn't be the end of the world, but I'd still suggest it. Now for head gaskets, we are using OEM Subaru. In reality, you can really use actually you can't use any brand head gasket. Don't use Fail Pro. So if you're looking at your short block, you're gonna see this hole here. That hole is for your oil port. So match up the holes together, slide that on, and then you're gonna get the head gasket on the two metal dowels on the engine. So we're just gonna leave this. This is ready to accept a cylinder head, but before we do that, we're obviously going to clean this head just like we did the mating surface of the block. Now, when you tilt this up, be careful you don't lose any buckets. If you lose a bucket and you don't label them, you're not gonna know where they go, and then there's just kind of a bad time. So these are fresh from out front. They are decked, brand new valves, GSC retainers, all the good stuff on these. So I'm just gonna give this a light little like tap, wipe down, get off any potential grease, oils, things like that. We're gonna go ahead and slide this thing on and line it up with our head studs. Some people ask if you put the head studs in before or after, and to be honest, it really doesn't matter as long as you get the head studs in. So I like to do it before because I use them as a guide. We are gonna have to clean off a whole bunch of old sealant on here, which isn't the end of the world, it's not bad. Normally I use a razor blade to do it, so we'll do that after we get this head bolted down. So now we need to hit all of the threads of the studs here with some ARP lubricant. We can actually go ahead and put our washers on first if we want to, so we'll just toss our washers on. Be careful with the washers. I've made the mistake of dropping one into the engine. It goes into the oil pan, and you know, not a fun time because then you got to take the oil pan back off. Grab our ARP lube here. Get some on the threads of the studs. You don't need a ton of this either. It's going to, you just need a little bit because this stuff gets everywhere also. Now what this lube does is it just helps you get to the right torque value. So you're not going too much, you're not going too little, anything crazy like that. So now we need to put some more of this lube onto our nuts here. So just put it on the bottom. I like to just kind of rub it around, and then I'll grab a nut, I'll put them two together, smear them around each other, and then boom, you got two nuts that are ready to go. Make sure you clean all the studs too. When you get these brand new out of the bag, they are going to be covered in like an oil. So I obviously already cleaned them before I put them in, otherwise we wouldn't be threading everything on right now, but to make sure that you're doing that also. And then we can start torquing down this head, which I feel like a lot of people get stressed out about that stuff. No need. There's no need to get stressed. We're not sending it with this. We're just getting them nice and tight. Not tight. We're just getting them on. Don't tighten them with this. Now they're all cinched down. So that's when we're going to grab our torque wrench and our piece of paper. So the piece of paper just tells you the torque value and order. So it's going to be 30, 60, 90. I just like to have this as a reference. So it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This one will be 6. All right, now we're gonna go up to 60 foot-pounds in that same order. 60, 60. Sometimes a little easier to reposition yourself on the opposite side. 60, 60, 60. All right, now is when I swap over to the 1/2 inch, because it's a little easier to do 90 on this 1/2 inch than it is on that guy. There's 1, 2, 4 is right here. 1 more. Alright, so, woo! 1 cylinder head bolted down. Now we got to get the cams in. Cams have already been cleaned and they have assembly lube already on them, as you guys can see. If you don't know what cam is what, it'll label on here. So this one's left exhaust. Scrape a lot of this initial stuff off and then we can hit it with some Scotch-Brite. If you've never done this before, I would suggest putting towels in here or something. It's not a bad idea. Normally with assembly lube on the razor blade, it'll catch everything, so it won't let it fall in there. All right, so let me get all this cleaned up real quick because it's gonna take me a little while. With our girdle cleaned up right here, we need to put some sealant on it. I've got a whole bunch of old tubes of like RTB black and Permatex, all Permatex stuff sitting around. So we need to apply a thin layer. Say it with me, a thin layer around the girdle. I always see people go too heavy and then they clog up these ports for the AVCS. You just need a light layer of this stuff. You don't need to cake it on. All right. See how I can just grab some sealant from some spots, then get other spots. Ideally, that's what you want to do. You want to try to use as little of this as you can, but you still want it to seal. There's like a happy medium, you know what I mean? Not too much, not too little. Don't cake it on. Getting around these dowels is always a little bit of a pain, but easily doable. It's even handy to have like one of these little spreader guys for getting around like that dowel to be able to get adequate sealant. You're gonna apply sealant all around the girdle except for these 2 spots right there. And once you've got that, we're gonna put assembly lube on these journals. And then we can go ahead and get the girdle on, torque it down. And then we can either put the valve cover on and seal up that head or jump over to the other side and do that head. I haven't decided what I wanna do yet. Come on, girdle. Watch me grab the wrong one. That side on the head, it's not a big deal. It ain't a big deal. There we go. I gotta clean around that surface, but it's fine. I can do it with it on there. It's not a big deal. I already put all the sealant and everything on, so I'm not gonna try to battle with it. So if I remember off the top of my head, 8 foot-pounds, 14 foot-pounds. I will Google just to double check. Never hurts to double check torque specs. I'm gonna zap them all down to get it started though. Let's torque these guys down. 7 and 14. I was close. I was close. Double check these ones. Good. 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 Only 7 on these front ones. Go. Cam still spins freely. Cam still spins freely. That's what you want. After getting the girdle and the valve cover cleaned up a bit, I'm gonna go ahead and put the gasket in here. So this is just from the gasket and seal kit that I use. It's just an OEM Subaru kit. I try to only use Subaru gaskets when possible because I found a lot of the third-party or aftermarket ones, they don't really tend to work all that well. So now that we've got our gasket in right there, I'm gonna go ahead and grab this gasket maker that we got. Come over here and gasket up our girdle. So on cylinder heads, on all cylinder heads for valve covers, I always use sealant. Some people do, some people don't. It does help keep the valve cover sealed longer. I'm not saying that the valve cover is going to leak immediately or it's going to fail immediately or anything like that, but it just helps long term. So I like to apply some sealant. We're already fighting gravity with flat engines, so if you can give it an extra little fighting chance, definitely do so. If you have half moons, I'm gonna tell you now, use a little bit of extra sealant right on the bridge of the half moons where they connect up with the block, so that way they seal a bit better because those do have a tendency to leak. So I just put a little extra gloop like that on there. We're gonna do the same thing in the corner here for where the girdle meets the cylinder head, because that is another pretty frequent spot for leaks. So the easiest way I found to clean old sealant off the girdle and the cylinder head itself is brake clean and Scotch-Brite. It seems to work surprisingly well. Doesn't hurt. I'm gonna go ahead and set this guy on. Right, like so. I like to get them all kind of hand tight to start things off. So that way the valve cover can kind of center itself where it needs to. Don't hit these with an impact initially, especially if they don't feel like they want to go in. Grab a ratchet, 1/4 inch works pretty well. Last thing you want to do is start breaking valve cover bolts. Make sure they all go in nicely. I'm probably gonna focus on this cylinder head while I'm over here. I like to just kind of focus on one side, get that one side as far as I can, and then jump over to the other side. I don't know why, it's just kind of the way that I do things. You can do one head, then the other head if you want. I like to just kind of work my way through one head, wrap up one side, then jump over to the other. Like I said, ain't no wrong or right way. Someone's gonna be like, per the Subaru FSM, this is the right way. You know what, lick my butt. So while we have sealant on this valve cover and it is curing, I am gonna toss in the spark plugs and we're gonna put in the coil packs, just so that way we can get the coil packs to secure down, because they're also gonna push down on the valve cover just to help it seal a little bit. See, this one felt a little bit rough going in, but it went in. Like I said, that's why we're not using an impact. We're just using a 1/4 inch going around it, cinching them up, going around it, cinching them up, because that way we're kind of doing like an even bit of pressure putting the valve cover on. You don't need to go any more than hand tight. You can, yes, you can torque these down if you wish. It's not right there. All right, so I'm gonna grab a rag, wipe up the squeeze out back here. I like to wipe up my squeeze out. Some people leave it. I just think it's kind of lazy to leave your squeeze out. All right, spark plugs right there. So we're just gonna run the stock gap on these, which I believe is 0.28. We're not really shooting for power on this car. Shooting for, it's gonna make a little bit more power, but kind of shooting for overall fun daily street car, 350 range, somewhere there. 16 mil and GK 2309s for plugs. There. I'm not loving these coil packs. They are a bit rusty, but working with what we got here. 1, 2. The coil packs will help as well to seal up the valve cover. It's just added pressure. We're gonna come in here, grab our cam seals. So there should be one AVCS one and one non-AVCS. So AVCS, non-AVCS. If you have a dual AVCS car, you're gonna have 2 of these. This one's gonna go on the exhaust side, right there. This one's gonna go on the intake side, right there. And then we got our special company 23 tool to put those guys in. That is definitely not it. This tool literally makes putting these seals in so easy. Plus it puts it in evenly too, so can't really mess it up. I say you can't really mess it up, but you can mess it up. A perfect seal every time. Look at that. I would like to get this thing timed tonight. I don't know if that's going to happen. It's kind of late, but we'll see how far we get. So while we're still on this side, I got one more thing I want to do. We're not going to put the cam gears on yet. I do want to get our new oil control valve on here. So whenever it comes to an engine failure, oil control valves, we always swap them. Anything that touches oil or is oil related, we replace. So it's going to be oil control valves, oil coolers, cam gears, everything like that. Look at that, brand new oil control valve. Nice and shiny. That's gonna go right in here. Then we're gonna grab a 10 mil bolt, bolt that guy down, and then at that point we can jump over to the other head and put that one on. Which I'm gonna have to clean that one also, which is gonna suck. I hate cleaning heads, but it's part of the job. Do, 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 do. Look at that. Oil control valve, brand new. So for the other head, we're gonna literally do everything that we just did on this side over to the other side. Same thing as last time. We're gonna go ahead and wipe down our head here, clean it off, get any particulates or anything like that out of here. I went through and I already cleaned the head. I still have to clean the girdle to get all the old sealant off. That's a dirty rag. So I still got to clean that. I just need the space up here to be able to clean it. So we're going to go ahead and get the head bolted onto the engine, and then we will jump to cleaning it. Some people ask me why I don't put, you could put the sealant on the lube from ARP on the studs beforehand if you wanted to, but I don't like potentially risking getting some of that sealant on the head studs, or on the head gasket. So normally I'll just wait, but I mean, you could do it either way. You just got to be careful if you do it that way, if you lube them up and then put the head gasket on. Head gasket, so same thing as last time. If we're looking at the cylinder head, oil port there, oil port right there. Don't put it on like that, because then you're gonna have to do it again. So make sure that your oil ports do line up like that. Normally I'll like look down through the holes and then just bam, just like that. So let's go ahead, lube up our threads, then we can go ahead and get our, actually we put washers on now, it doesn't matter. You can do washers then threads, or threads and washers. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. At least this way, if I put the washers on, I can just alleviate stressing about dropping one into the oil pan. Now you guys can see I already cleaned the head portion. So that way I wasn't doing it on the engine. I thought that they had already come cleaned from out front. Got all our threads lubed up with my fingy. Go ahead and get the nuts started. I guess the nuts are another one you gotta kind of stress so you don't drop a nut. I'm saying all this, then watch, I'm gonna end up dropping one. The amount of lube they give you in these packets, I think this one packet has lasted me like 4 engines. You should not use the entire packet. Let me specify that right now. It's gonna be the same as last time, 30, 60, 90 in order. 30, 30, 30, 30, 30, 30. Now we're gonna go 60. Oh, we got a 1/2 inch. 90. This is the one that sucks. 90. Beautiful. Both our heads are torqued on. Look at that. Looks like a Subaru engine now. Alright, so with the heads torqued on, I'm going to go ahead and toss these cams in. Just get them out of the way. Quick visual inspection. Make sure there's no goo on them. By goo, I mean shmoo. This one is good. This is intake. We have our little lines up here for intake. I need to put assembly lube. What am I doing? Let's slap our intake cam in. Exhaust cam, assembly lube. This is number 3 intake. Right there, this one's exhaust, arrow facing forward. After I get these just hand tight, I gotta go clean that girdle. Once I get that clean, we can get the sides sealed up, get the valve cover on, all that fun stuff. But we're getting close to being able to get to time this thing. Which is ideally my goal tonight, we'll see. When did I finish tearing this down? Yesterday or the day before? On these cams, only go hand tight right now. You don't need to torque them yet, not until the girdle goes on. I just like to do them hand tight so that way they're not gonna go anywhere. They can't fall out. Last thing you want is your cam to fall out. Maybe it's not. Who am I to tell you what to do? Got everything cleaned up, so I'm gonna set our valve cover aside for right now. We can get our girdle on. Just went through, got all the old sealant off, cleaned it with brake clean, parts cleaner, all that fun stuff. So you are good. Okay, cool. Sealant is still usable. So same thing as last time, light coat. Girdle. a weird word, girdle. Girdle, it's like Squirtle. Girdle, girdle. Bam. Cam still spins. Still spins. Dope. Now we can toss our valve cover on. So, let me get the valve cover ready real quick. Grab you. Set you like that. Grab our gaskets. Grommet, guys. Give me that. One there. Our extra little bead right there. Put our extra little bead right there. Right there. Right there. Extra bead right there. Immediately after you get both the heads on, you get each side mirrored, don't put timing covers on, don't do any of that stuff, because I see people make this mistake all the time. I've been guilty of it, and I only did it once because it only takes one time to learn. If you ever get crush washer stuck, grab a pair of diagonal cutters, just kind of clamp them like that. It'll break the seal a little bit, and you can get them off a lot easier, because sometimes these things just do not want to come off. This one, crush washer is still on it. Clamp her down. There it comes. Beautiful. Wipe these two down one more time around the head. So I see this happen frequently. People get ahead of themselves, which is fine. We all do it, but it can fuck you later on with this stuff. So always put these AVCS lines on first. You're going to see two different types of banjos, one with a hump, one without a hump. After you take the filters out, to be honest, it really doesn't matter. I put the humped ones up top, so slide that guy through. Grab our second banjo bolt, slide that guy through. And we're just gonna come right here and tighten it down a little bit. Grab our other one, I swing this up, bring it through, slide the crush washer over, and then start to thread that one on. If you don't put these on and you put everything else on, you time the car and everything, you're really screwing yourself, because you got to come back through here and take off timing just to put this on, because you can't get this on with timings on. So let's keep that in mind. So one of them on. We could do the other one after we do timing, but since I'm already here, I'm just going to knock them both out. So So there's our unhumped one. Here's our humped one. If you have some of these banjos and they still have the filters inside of them, take them out. When they clog up, they create a mess of problems. So we got our banjos there. Grab 4 more of these guys. That one's for turbo. 2, 3, 4. You'll see 2 sizes of crush washer in here too. The smaller ones are for the turbo oil feed. The bigger ones are for the AVCS lines or the oil feed lines like these. So the same thing, we're gonna put these in the same spots. So there used to be a tab on this one that would bolt right there, but it seems somebody before us has decided to cut it off and it wasn't important, so that's fine. Oh fuck, this is a different head. I need a different oil feed line because we're not using V25B heads anymore. We need to pull it from here. Fine, I got a solution for this. Not gonna stress it. I got a solution. Been prepared for this moment. I have an IAG oil feed line kit right here. Look at that. I was prepared for this, so I'm not gonna worry about that oil line then, since we have this IAG oil feed line kit. We're just gonna use that instead, so cool. Timing covers. Go ahead and grab our, that can go in my extra parts pile down there. So timing cover number 1, it's gonna go right there. We're gonna toss in our cam sensors. So I'm just gonna give these a good wipe down. 1 cam sensor there. 1 cam sensor there. Crank sensor. Cam sensor, crank sensor, cam sensor. We can start putting timing cover bolts in. Timing cover bolts have this like built-in washer on them. So I'm gonna just come up here. Before we do the timing cover on that side, I actually do need to put the water pump and stuff on, so we're just gonna get this one bolted on to start with, and then if we want, we could actually get the cam gears put on too. I need 3 more timing cover bolts. Did I put any more in here? I need 1 more timing cover bolt for this side. Timing cover on. Now before we put the timing cover on this side, there's some stuff we got to do here. We got to get the water pump on, the bracket, oil fill tube, or oil dipstick, and the water lines that come up. So I will say, I do see some people with water pumps try to put gasket maker on them. You can try that if you want. I personally wouldn't advise it or suggest it, but I'm not your dad. We got our gasket right here, which goes on the side of the water pump. Gaskets right there, bolts are right there. Alright, now the water pump torque spec is only like 12 foot-pounds, or like 8 foot-pounds. Actually, it's 8 foot-pounds, it's not even 12. 12 is way too high, don't do that. I've seen so many people strip out water pump bolts, including myself. Don't be a victim. And it's easiest put at least 2 bolts in here first, so that way you can hold the gasket in place, otherwise the gasket's going to try to swing out on you. So if you can at least get 2 bolts in there to get it started, it'll keep the gasket in place. I don't even use a torque wrench for this because I've actually stripped these out with the torque wrench. Go a little bit past hand tight and you just work around in a star pattern. I have stripped out so many of these ungodly things. Legit, all you need for this is a 1/4 inch ratchet. You don't need a 3/8, you don't need a 1/2 inch. 1/4 inch, totally fine. Go. There we go. Water pump on, thermostat. This is what I want. Wheat pole on top. this. So place these O-rings on the end. Here's another thing that people find controversial. I put a little bit of gasket maker on the end of this. I have fixed too many of these engines that have had issues where the dipstick doesn't seal, and it's fucking sucks. I was gonna straight up say it fucking sucks having to go back in there while the engine's installed in the car to try to get one of these in. So pop off this little cap. Here, there should be 2 little baby O-rings. This is the first one of these kits I've gotten in a while. It doesn't have 4 rear main seals in it. It was going on at Subaru, but they were putting like 3 or 4 of these freaking things. Oh, no, they're the orange ones. I grabbed the wrong ones. They were putting like 3 or 4 rear main seals in each one of these kits for some reason. Like I said, some of you are going to judge me for doing this, but I literally do this. I do this on my own engines. I do this on other ones. Not like it's a ton. It's just a little bit. Some people judge me for it. It's whatever. You can judge me if you want. Oh, I put this AVCS line on backwards, didn't I? It's all right. Let me fix that real quick. I didn't tighten them down yet, so we should be good. Now that guy will go on nicely. Right, now I'm gonna tighten down this AVCS line. I was gonna say, that thing looked a little off. Why didn't anyone point that out? Why didn't you say, Tanner, you put the AVCS line on backwards? So I'm saying, most of the stuff that, when it comes to putting these together, things can only go on one way. Dipstick tube, water pump. We need to do these 2 water lines. Then we can do this guy, then get this timing cover on, and then we can time it. I let my camera charge for a minute. I went ahead and just tossed on these water lines, so you just snake them behind the oil fill tube here. I forgot to order this line here, so that's not going to stop us. I'm going to order that tonight, and then we can toss that on after we get the timing covers and everything else, so once that shows up. So we need to... Oh my god, where'd it go? This timing cover goes on. So I always put this on before putting the bracket right here on for the other guy, just because it kind of makes it a pain in the butt to try to get to it. So go ahead and get this timing cover on. So we've got that in. We need this bracket here. I'm gonna put a little, I like to put a little bit of Loctite on these. You don't need a lot, just a little touch. Just a small dab, don't need a lot. Now I need the 12 for right there, which I have up here. Now we can start tossing timing components on. So let's get our cam gears on to start with. So I don't ever reuse the stock bolts for it. I use these. These are TIC FU cam bolts, or more recently, I think they're Company 23. I think half of these are labeled Company 23. They are. Doesn't matter that half of them are labeled Company 23, but it changes them from the stock 10mm Allen to this beautifulness, which is a 17 mil. So here we have, I want to say this is left hand. It is left hand. Left hand. I need the other non-AVCS. So to tell the difference between an AVCS one and a non-AVCS, the AVCS one will have a hole in the middle of it. That hole is to feed oil to the cam gears. The non-AVCS obviously do not have a hole in them, so that's how you can kind of tell the difference if you're ever curious. And we line up our cam gear with the little notch. For our AVCS cams, we have brand new ones. One of them's right here. We got new radiator caps for this because this car overheated. You can, technically speaking, clean your old ones. It's just even with my own cars and other people's cars, I've never been a huge fan of it. We've done it, but it's not like the ideal way in my opinion. Brand new. So this is going to be right hand. Intake right hand. So on the back side, there's a little keyed sprocket, and you're gonna line up that hole with the key on the cam. You can mess this up. I've done it before. There we go. It'll just kind of rotate into place like that. Grab our AVCS guy. Bam. So this guy next. Same thing with this gear. Locate the sprocket, which is right there. Now we need to torque all of these down. So I torque these down to 70 foot-pounds. 17 1/2 inch. And then I need these guys. Boop. Set this guy to 70. Right there. There's one. Two. There we go. 70. Bam. All torqued down. All right, time for the other guys. This is a motor mount. I guess I'm finding motor mount bolts, so I guess we can just toss the motor mounts on real quick. It's weird that I can just look through these and be like, I know what this is, I know what that is. You do it enough times, it's like weird second nature stuff. Motor mount bolts are 14s with these little washers on them. So if you look at them, I mean, the mounts are going to be labeled, but an easy way to remember is the stud will always go to the rear. So let me actually wipe these off real quick just to get some of the shmoo off these. So for the motor mount, they are labeled right there, right? So we're gonna go ahead and put the right-hand one on here. The stud for it will always face the rear of the engine. They are offset. You can put them in backwards. If for some reason you take the motor mount out of the bracket here, you can't put them in backwards. So just remember, stud to the back. I'm gonna have to wipe this one down. Actually, no, this one's not too bad. It's a little rusty, but not too bad. Bring this back here. That is stud to the rear. All right, motor mounts on. Now I can stop kicking those and they're out of my way. Now we can start putting on the timing pulleys and everything. I just kept kicking the motor mounts, so I got tired of kicking them. Tensioner is gonna go in right here. We are lined up on top dead center on the crank. Our cams are definitely not lined up right now, but that's all right. Got our sprocket boy, which is going to be a longer version of that, which I see it right there. Sprocket boy goes right after the water pump. Tiny idler. This one's going to be a 12, which I still have to dig the bolt out of here, but I think I see it. Where's my 12? Aha, there it is. It's so weird, I can just throw all the bolts in a box and be like, I know what each one goes to. This guy will go right here, and then we're gonna leave the last one off, and that one's gonna go right down there. And we'll torque all these down after the fact, but I do wanna get this one ready. This guy, so that guy I always put right there, so we can go ahead and line up our cam gears. We got a timing mark right here on the top. The two lines are gonna line up with the other cam gear on the bottom, and the single one line is gonna line up there. So we're lined up there, the two lines will line up there. That one's gonna line up with the side of the timing cover there. I'm gonna go ahead and loosen up all of these doodads, I guess you could call them, the timing guides. So that way I can easily snake the belt in and out. There's one. There's two. This side's always going to be sprung, or at least it's always going to feel like it's going to be sprung, so I'm going to try to get these somewhat close. And then we're going to use this tool. It's going to slide over both of these, and we need to grab a 17 and a 19. We're going to have to hold the 19 here. Actually, we'll do this one first. 19 here and then the 17 here. So we want to keep this outer bolt loose, and then we're going to use this 19 to get this lined up right there, and then we'll tighten that down while making sure that that's still in time there. And we're gonna do the same thing. Oh, see, that's what I mean. Sometimes it doesn't want to cooperate. Right there. I need to move this down one more so I can see. That's gonna be that guy right there. Yep. And then we can tighten that guy, and that's gonna hold our cam gears in place while we get our belt on. Always double check as you're going through this. A lot of people get confused by the marks on the belt. The marks on the belt are literally just to install the belt. That is it. After it's installed, never reference it again. So the dotted line right before all the words is gonna go on the crank. And that's gonna line up right there. This guy's gonna swing up and over. It's gonna land right on top of that gear there. We're gonna swing down. I'm not gonna line up that bottom one yet. I'm gonna swing this guy up, over, and around first. So that way it can kind of just chill in place. And then, yeah, sometimes we gotta catch and grab the belt with this bottom one. So before we do that, I'm gonna slide this guy up and over, slide this guy down and around. So sometimes you gotta kind of rotate it to be able to get it to catch. And that guy should slide on. That should line up, which it does. Now we gotta play catch the timing line here. So we just need to have this guy come up. There we go. So in time, in time, in time, in time, in time, in time. So now we can swing this guy on there. Pick up the belt. So before I pull the grenade pin, I try to center the belt on everything, because you can see right there it's like super not fucking centered. Pop the pin. We're gonna let that sit for a minute. While that sits, we're gonna go ahead and pop off our tool here. Don't throw these away, these are good to keep around too. There we go. 22 for the crank. Now we're gonna turn the engine over slowly. We're gonna go slowly so that way it doesn't skip. Timing belt already feels pretty tight. That's gonna take us 2 revolutions to get back to top dead center. And right there, that was already 2. I'm gonna show you guys this, and some of you are gonna think that something's wrong, and I've seen this all too often. So if you look at our crank here, we're in time there. We are in time on these 2 gears here. Our 2 marks line up. We're in time on the side. We're in time on the top. We are in time on the top. We're in time on the side. But these 2 appear to be a tooth off. Don't worry about that. Just don't stress it. It has to do with the AVCSs not being zeroed out. The belt will, don't worry about it. Don't stress it. As for the marks on the belt, you'll see none of them line up. They never will again. They're literally only there for installation. So we are timed. So now we need to get all of our timing guides kind of lined up where they're going to go. Torque down all of our pulleys, which I have the paper right here, so I might as well just torque those down now. 29 for everything except for the 12. Oh, my battery's gonna die. All right, let me torque these down while you guys charge. I did do a little bit of stuff off camera while this was charging, so all I did was get the clutch and flywheel on. So a flywheel gets torqued down to 55 foot-pounds. The clutch or the pressure plate gets torqued down to 11. I Loctite all those bolts on both the flywheel and the pressure plate because after having one of them back out on my own personal car, I don't mess around with that. I don't like worrying or stressing about it. So at this point we are ready to go ahead and get the transmission ready to accept our engine. Now there are some other things that I would like to do on this engine, but I'm missing a couple fittings and whatnot, but I don't want to let those hold me up from getting this guy back into the car. So we're gonna go and grab some Molly grease real quick and just set that there. Don't mind my mess. I know it's messy, okay? We need our clutch fork pin, a couple towels. I'm gonna rip up a little bit of towel here. I'm gonna set that guy right there. Don't let me forget that. I'm gonna come in here and just kind of clean off our shaft and wipe everything down. To get the engine in, we first need to prep that. So I have a new throwout bearing, somewhere over here, throwout bearing. I have an ACT one, but for most cars, I try to use OEM if possible. So go ahead and pop this guy open. They come with a little bit of lube on the arms, so we can just leave those. I am gonna grab a little bit of Molly grease though, and just put it on the inside of the throw bearing. Set this down for a second. Grab some moly grease, come over here. We're gonna lube up our shaft. Yes, you can laugh that I said lube up our shaft. Grab some grease and grab our throw bearing. Slide our throw bearing on and then our clutch fork over the arms, just like that. And we're gonna snake this. So the little notch is gonna go like that. So that way the flat spots will go through, and we're just gonna pick up the clutch fork and slide this guy in. Sometimes it takes an attempt or two to be able to get it into the right position, but there we go. So you'll know it's all the way in when it pokes out the other side. So we gotta get the transmission ready before putting the engine in, otherwise you're not gonna be able to engage the clutch fork. Then we need our 14mm plug for the transmission, which is right there. So I'm not gonna fully tighten this in yet, but I'm gonna go ahead and get it started here. We need to jack up the transmission, get the engine, or the car up in the air a little bit. So what do I wanna do first? We'll get the car up, get the transmission jacked up a little bit, and from there, we'll get the engine on the hoist and then get it dropped in. We don't gotta go up crazy high, we just gotta go up enough to be able to get the arms under, be able to move things around a bit. I need 3 12s, 1 14. So just like before, we are going to go off of the alternator spot, the power steering pump spot. I also prefer using the 4-point method like this just because I feel like it takes a little bit of stress off of each mounting location as well. So that way you don't have a shit ton of weight on like 2 points. And I guess it's really not that much weight. Let's see if this engine wants to cooperate going in. Sometimes they go in nicely, other times not so much. I need to get the dowels out of the transmission because we already have them in our engine here. So a lot of the times people will forget to remove the old dowels, which I don't blame them, we all do it. But if you don't remove the dowels, you're not gonna be able to get that engine out. So you can use a punch, you can use whatever you got. We're going out the other way. Just because I can break them free like this and then just knock them out. There's one. There we go. Make sure that you have no dowels in the transmission if you do have them in the engine. So now that we've got that cleared out, we can go ahead and get this thing off the stand, get it up and in, slide her in. The easiest way is to get the studs to slide in. I'm gonna grab some of the bell housing bolts just to prep them so that way once we start to have cohesion, we can easily just pop it together. So we have our monolock here, throw bearing on there, clutch is set up, engine's ready to go. We're gonna bring this up. Now we have that jack under the car, so we are gonna have to be cautious of how we get the feet down under there, but we should be able to get it in there. As we lower this engine in, it's gonna wanna go back. So normally I'll keep a hand right here and then just kind of guide it in. Stop. So we don't want it to go all the way back yet. So I want to keep it somewhat forward so that way the clutch and the input shaft don't become best friends, because we don't want that quite yet. Now we're at a point where we can start lining things up. So I need this to come down just a hair. Right there. I'm gonna get that guy right there. I'm gonna lean over, start getting the studs lined up with the engine, which I think I just got them both in. Which I did, beautiful, and the input shaft is in. So at this point, let's jack it up a little bit, then start fanoodling it to get it to go together. Sometimes you're gonna have jack transmission up a little bit. You also gotta make sure that you're clearing the subframe with the engine mounts, which we're not. So that means we need the transmission to come up a little bit, and then the engine to come up a little bit. There we go, you see how it just slid together like that? So now that she's together, grab some of these bell housing bolts and start getting them in. Now, normally I'll do one in on the top on each side, and then I'll get the 2 nuts on the bottom, because the bottom 2 nuts are the most important.
If you can't get those ones to thread on, you're gonna have a real bad time. But I do want to keep tension on this so it doesn't pull away. Yep, our stud is right there, poking through. I need the stubby 14 to suck them together. Dope. I don't want to suck it all the way through yet. I just want to get it started because I want to get the other bottom nut on first. Otherwise, it's going to seat unevenly. Just the last thing that I want. There it is. All right, so our engine and transmission are seated. Come back over here, drop the trans jack to let the trans be able to come down fully. Just like that. Then we're gonna set this guy down. So you guys can see only one engine mounts in right now, so. Sometimes you can shake it to get it to go in. Doesn't always work. There it goes. Now it's gonna go in. See? Engine's installed. Now before we do anything, I wanna tighten that so that way that stops coming down. We're gonna take the clutch fork here and we're gonna push it, and we wanna listen for a click. Like that. So now when I come into the car and I push the clutch should work. If you don't do this and your clutch fork doesn't engage, you're gonna have to do everything again. So come in here. Clutch works. If the clutch doesn't return back up, you got a problem. So our engine's installed just like that. Let me get the chain out of here. Let me get the hoist out the way. And we can start on reassembly. Engine's in. We are going to go ahead and keep it going. So that slide pin bolt, we're gonna go ahead and tighten that down, get that guy nice and tight like a twiga here. All right. You don't need to go crazy tight. I see people over torque those all the freaking time. Don't do that. All right. Don't be that guy. Pop this guy back out. So you have a couple different sizes of bolt for the bell housing. You're gonna have one that's short like this, one that's long. The long ones are for the top two. The short ones are for everything else. Actually, I don't want to put the starter in yet. I lied to you guys. We're gonna set the starter right there, and I'm gonna hit up these other bolts first, so that way I can get them all in. I think this car is missing a couple bell housing bolts, but whatever. So after you get that one down there, then you can put the starter in. Otherwise, it's just gonna be a real pain. Now, before we put this top one on, there is this bracket that's gonna have to go right there for the top one. So don't forget this bracket. This is the ground for the battery for the engine. I'll slide that guy through. Now we just need one more for this top one right here. Then our bell housing bolts are in. There we go. All right, cool. Bell housing bolts are in. Now, I want to get this starter kind of knocked out right here. So you're going to have the signal wire for the starter, which I tucked this one kind of up and out of the way. So bring it back down here, slide it onto the signal. And then we've got our 12mm nut for the power source for this guy. Right there. Put our starter wire back on, and that should be a 12mm. Go. Put the boot back on. Now our boot's on. Sweet. So we got our starter in, engine in, heater core lines. We will do oh, fuck, we could just do them now. Let me find the hose clamps for them. They had worm gears on them. I don't want to reuse worm gears on those. I'm already right here, so I figured it would just be easiest just to get these on. There's one. That one should be easier because it's on the top. Goes in, comes out. Beautiful. Is that right? Yeah, that is right. There we go. Beautiful. Heater core hose is on. So that area back there is kind of just done right there. I'm gonna go ahead and set the AC compressor back down for now. I'm not gonna bolt this down yet just because I wanna be able to maneuver it out of my way. I just don't want it sitting right here anymore if we don't have to. So power steering pump, I wanna get that permanently on because once I get the power steering pump in, that is when I will put in the radiator, and we have a brand new Koyo rad going in this thing. Just stay over there for a minute. Longest one's gonna go in the front right here. And that guy will go. This is why I always do this before I do the radiator, because once you get the radiator in, this becomes exponentially more difficult. There we go, power steering pump's in. I'm gonna go ahead and get the radiator in. Grab our Koyo radiator right here. Koyo, Koyo, Koyo. Foam. Slide the feet of the fan in here. I'm gonna have to cut these off. I'm pretty sure. I'm gonna cut them. I can cut them off with the fans on there. It's not a big deal. And then we got our crossover tube here, which will go on like so. Now, if you're still using your stock radiator, obviously you don't gotta go through and do all this, but. We got our radiator here. We can slide this guy down and in. That's why I like doing the power steering pump first. Like I said, I just like to double check to make sure that the feet are in, which they appear to be. We got new radiator caps for this car, so we got our circle one here. The circle one goes on the radiator, right here. And then the one with ears will go on our expansion tank up top. We also have new radiator hoses, and we can throw these in as well while we're up here, just to make our life a little bit easier, so we don't gotta do it later. I like to kind of work from the front and go backwards when it comes to assembling. Like I said, there's not a right or a wrong way to do a lot of this stuff. So, I don't think there's a right or wrong way on this hose either. There we go. If you're going to use worm gears like this, put them in accessible spots. So we're actually going to pop this coolant crossover off for a second, just scoot it over. I found a spare B25 oil feed line that I have, and we can use that instead of having to use a custom oil feed line for these heads. Because we are swapping from B25, or from V25B over to B25, because that's what we were able to get for the cylinder heads. So now we have an appropriate oil line for them. That guy up, slide it through. Get that one screwed down a little bit. Come right back here. And then two. Now we can tighten down that 10. So knock sensor gets torqued down to 18 foot-pounds. If you don't torque down the knock sensor, you will get a lot of false knock. 18. Knock sensor's in place. Now we can get the rest of the cooler crossover on. So that is going to entail this guy here. So I need to grab a clamp for our hose, and then this one I'm gonna swap out. These ones are still relatively new. If they're still, I got a new one of these, but if they're still bendy and relatively new, don't stress them too much. This one's a little bit rusty, so I would like to swap that out. This is just 1/2-inch hose, because this guy I would like to toss on, because he's gonna go on right there. Okay, I need that guy back. Actually, it's gotta go on there first, and then you go on. Yeah, these are like brand new still, dude. Somebody at some point replaced them. Hose clamp down for the water pump line. A lot of people ask to see where the PCV lines go, so this is actually a really good opportunity to show you guys. The way this works is you've got these black lines that are in the middle. These black lines, you have this one coming up right here from the water pump. That crosses over on the front right here and comes up to here, which goes to the coolant expansion tank. These ones back here, you've got this rubber line that comes up and over, comes down to this middle point, and then it keeps going up and over to the other head and then down to the middle of the block right there. That is to balance out the PCV pressure between cylinder heads and the block. So this is like, a lot of people get confused by that. These front ports on the valve covers will either go to your AOS or it's going to be another crossover that goes right here to the PCV valve. You've got this other black line that comes back right here, which comes up and goes to the heater core, and the heater core comes back here. You've got one water line here, which goes to a throttle body right down there, and then you've got another one off the cooler crossover right there that goes to the throttle body right here. And that's going to go to the throttle body on one side. Kind of how that goes, it's not too complicated. After you look at it with everything kind of out of the way, an exploded view, kind of makes a little bit more sense. So it's a new day. We got some more parts in for the Subaru, so we're gonna get cracking on this. So we are using a Cobb front mount intercooler on this car. There's a lot of different ones you can use. I like the Cobb one mainly because we can still retain the stock airbox, not the stock airbox, but the Cobb airbox with the Cobb front mount. So pretty good setup in my opinion. So first thing we need to do, I'm gonna bring this thing up in the air a little bit so it's a little bit easier to work on. Now with the car up, we can start getting off this crash bar. So you can use the 1/2 inch to pull all these out. Wow, dude, this car at some point I'm guessing had a front mount because it is missing a handful of the bolts for it. Oh no. Oh no, my socket will just come right up and off now, just like so. Let's grab our new crash bar, right there, underneath our beautiful intercooler. So we'll set the intercooler down like that. Grab our crash bar, and this is what the intercooler will bolt to. So it should slide onto these studs right here, which it does. And then we just reuse the old nuts. Now we can grab our intercooler and start getting that on. So that is going to be held up by these. There's going to be a mounting point there, there, and then 2 on the bottom side. So there we go. Use my legs to kind of keep it propped up. I'm going to trim this back more. I'm just going to trim it back a bit. There we go. So that will clearance, or make clearance, I guess I should say, for the actual core of the front mount intercooler. So I want to go in there with a touch-up pen now and touch up any bare metal. It's actually Mitsubishi Tarmac black paint. Now we should be able to get the core on. We have our front mount intercooler core on the car now. Looks great. What I like to do from this point is start to get some of the piping on. So we can get 1 hot pipe and 1 cold pipe on just to kind of clear things up a little bit. I try to reduce how many parts we have sitting around. So we are going to need this pipe right here in this box. This is going to go like that. Inside of our Cobb box here, we should have a whole bunch of like couplers and all sorts of fun stuff. So the straight couplers here. Oh my god, did Cobb finally stop using the stupid wrap for these and they just started putting them in bags? Sure thing. Take off. I'm gonna have to cut that off. I gotta zap that guy off real quick. There we go. Make some more room there. Now we can pop this cap off. Come on. There we go. 1 coupler, we can grab 2 of the clamps. So this one, we're just gonna slide over there, but we're gonna leave loose. So the intercooler pipe's gonna go up and through here. There should be a little grommet guy, which they do give us right here, which is perfect. We'll come up and slide up through the back hole. Like so. And then our tab will come up and through here. That's gonna go on right there. toss on as much as I can as I go through this, so that way I don't have so many parts at the end. So this way it's just like, all right, cool, we can get the front mount on, we can get the intercooler pipes on. Running an AEM oil pressure gauge in this car, and to adapt it for Subarus, you need a 1/8 MPT fitting, and that is 1/8 BPST, wrong fitting. So we got these guys to fix that. So this one's from Torque Solutions. Pro Sport makes them as well. And pulling this guy out is pretty straightforward. Should just zap out. Yep, it's a 17 mil, so we'll just set that guy aside. Then we're gonna put in this Pro Sport one. It's already got Loctite on it, sealant, and a crush washer. So that will adapt this to 1/8 NPT from 1/8 BPST. Make sure you get that tight, otherwise they will leak oil. So I figured I'd do that while I'm right here and make my life easier. We got our turbo in, we got our exhaust manifold in, our gauge bezel, our fuel injector, so we can get a lot done. We can get the engine harness in, the intake manifold on, the turbo in, the downpipe on. At this point, we are good to make a lot of progress. So first thing we're gonna do is go ahead and get this turbo in. Got this beautiful Cobb 20G right here to go in the car. This dude, the owners of the car, they're not looking for an absolute ton of power, so this will be a very good setup for them. This should get them to about 350, 360 wheels, somewhere in that range, so it'll be plenty for what they're going to be doing with the car. And it's pretty easy to get in. Slide that onto our up pipe. That guy can chill there. Now, we are going to have to kind of finoodle our turbo drain in there, which it shouldn't be too bad. Sometimes I'll put it on the turbo, then put it on. Other times I'll do it this way. So before I get this on, I would like to get these 3 turbo studs in to start with. This turbo is technically for 08 plus, but it fits on 02 to 07 as well. They even give us new turbo, or studs for the turbo. That's really sweet of them. Yeah, now that we got the turbo in, man, we can make so much more progress with the turbo in and everything else. And now this car was missing all of the turbo support brackets when we got it, so I did put some new ones on there for him, so that way the turbo will actually be properly supported. There's a lot of like grease on here, so give it a wipe down. A lot of it will burn off as soon as we go to start the car for the first time. Go ahead, slide this guy down. I need this guy to kind of just get out of my way for a minute. I want to make sure that our turbo drain goes in his home as this flange comes down. I need it to come up. I might put it on, I think I'm going to put it on the turbo first. Forgot I left this guy loose because it's not technically hooked up to the manifold yet. Give me that. Give me that. There's that guy. Grab this, put the actual proper clamps on this time. I want to make sure that that oil drains all the way on there, because when that leaks, dude, it's such a pain, which is why if I can use a tighter hose, I'll use a tighter hose. But it's always good to double check, which, yeah, we are definitely on. Beautiful. I want to get that clamp slid down, and then we can bolt the turbo down to the up pipe. This one's always a fun one. Sometimes you just gotta feel them. There is some play in this turbo right now. I'm not gonna mess with it too much till we get the exhaust manifold on, but it's looking good. I wanna try to keep it pushed over a little bit to make the turbo inlet fit a little bit easier, so ideally like right there would be pretty sweet. I wanna go ahead and get the oil cooler on the bottom of the car before we do anything else, just because it's gonna make it way easier before we toss the manifold and stuff like that on. Once you get the manifold on, doing anything down there just becomes a pain in the butt. So we have these metal crush washers that go over, and then this is either a 1 inch or a 24. I don't think I have a 1 inch or a 24 here. I know I have this 1 inch, so a little bit loose, but it'll be all right. And then once we get this in, then we can get all the oil cooler components on. So this is gonna go right here. And this is what circulates oil, or not oil, coolant from the water pump into the oil cooler and then back up into the block. There we go, that feels way better. All right, dope. So now we got that fitting on, let's get the new oil cooler on with the hoses. So whenever you have an engine failure, always put a new oil cooler on. You can try to clean these to an extent. To be honest, I don't think you'll ever get it 100%, but I'm getting pretty close. The cooler should go on like that. Now this doesn't always want to thread in nicely. So don't force it. I have a socket and tighten that guy down, which I believe that's also a 24 or 1 inch. Yeah, it is. You don't want to go super tight. That's good. Oil cooler's not gonna move. We can get our crossover tube on. It'll be easier to do now before the header goes on. One end goes on the oil cooler, and then other end right here on the water pump. Then we've got one bolt that threads in right above the oil cooler here. Hose clamp did not want to go on. Just means it's tight. There's the support bolt for the coolant line. Now we can grab the exhaust manifold, which is this beautiful HKS. Before I do that, I do want to grab our header gaskets, which are right here, and a couple 14s, just to be able to hold that thing up. This is HKS for anyone who is wondering. I want to make sure this clears the oil pan, which I'm pretty sure it will not. I'm pretty sure it will not. Oh no, it will clear the oil pan. Okay, cool. Barely, but it does. Sometimes these aftermarket manifolds won't clear oil pans, and that's when stuff sucks. Then you gotta play mix match. I've never used the HKS before, so first for me. These guys don't always like to stay on either. Sometimes they like to fall off. Alright, there's one. Hello. Two. You got me what? Sherbert. Ooh, I like sherbet.
That was the first one.
Right, so that bolt is no good. I'm guessing threads are damaged on it. Or not. Or maybe I just can't hand tighten it anymore. So we got a couple on here, because see, you can get some movement out of the header too. So our header fits, clears the oil pan, which is nice. We can get the oil filter on, which I'll probably toss that on, and then we can get the the exhaust manifold bolted to the up pipe, and then from there we can start messing with the turbo stuff. It's just there's steps to this, and if you start jumping steps, you're gonna find out real quick that things aren't gonna line up and things aren't gonna fit, and then you're gonna be very upset. So I need 3 more of these for the exhaust manifold, but that's all right. How did that one just fit? How do I get you? Oil filter can go up and on. So we still got to connect the up pipe and the exhaust manifold, which that shouldn't be bad. Pretty tight gap right there. Actually was not too bad. Alright, now we can jump back up top and focus on turbo, because now we got our oil cooler on, oil filter, exhaust manifold, up pipes bolted up, we got our heat shield on there, so that's pretty neat. Try to figure out if I want to do turbo or intake manifold next. I think I want to do intake manifold, to be honest. I mean, I guess at this point we'd actually toss the downpipe on. It's only a 20G, so I know the turbo inlet's gonna fit. Fuck it, let's just wrap up the exhaust. We'll get the turbo bolted down and then jump over to doing the intake manifold. So we'll just get the exhaust done. Turbo support brackets on. Beautiful, look at that. This is legit the only downpipe that we run. So these still are catted. They have a single Gessie G-Sport catalytic converter right here. They say Cobb though, which is kind of nice. So slide our downpipe gasket on here. So the head cam's battery is too low for me to wear it and go into the car, so I can't not continue to work. So let me just get this downpipe on real quick. It's going to be as easy as going under the car, sliding it up and on, and then the downpipe will be on. From there, I'll let this charge, and then at that point we can jump to the intake manifold stuff, which I feel like is where a lot of people get kind of confused on these. So I got the downpipe loosely in, it's not fully tightened yet, and then I just wanted to test fit the manifold. I went through here, rebuilt some stuff on it. I want to go ahead and get the manifold at least installed right now. There's some other things I need to do around it, but I'm not going to worry about that stuff right this second. So I do want to pop this guy right on out. We can grab this for now and get this guy in his home, which this should go on a lot easier. There it goes. All right. That guy's loosely in his home right there. I dropped literally all of my TGV bolts. So we are still utilizing stock fuel rails for what they're doing. Not really needed to swap them out. Now I gotta find those other 4 TGV bolts. TGV bolts. Look at that. The ones I put in are a little bit newer looking too. So I do have the throttle body off as well right this second. Dope. So just like that, we have got our intake manifold bolted back on. I want to go ahead and get the turbo inlet in there, which this will be a fun time. New gaskets, Grimspeed ones for this. Because once again, I don't know what happened with my gasket kit, but it like shorted me on gaskets. So we have some Grimspeed ones to toss in here to replace the old ones. So loosening up the manifold like this is going to let me kind of slide this turbo inlet in a little bit easier. And it'll let me swap out these gaskets. Why did I do this? Why did I do this the hard way? See how it's not all the way on back there? Yeah, we gotta get it all the way on. Now this will just go right on, won't it? Nope. Whole TGV came this way. Normally, you'd slide it through the intake manifold and then put it in. I was like, nope, we're gonna struggle bus today. That officially sucked. Now I gotta try to get all these TGVs back in. Which is actually going in pretty easy. I can come in here and slide our new gasket in. Alright, there's That's one side. I can bring our PCV valve line, not PCV valve, head breather line back up and over and slap it on right there for right now. Pair-in gives us a little adapter guide that will go in the turbo inlet to adapt to the intake. Sometimes they don't like to go on, but hey, look at that. This one's going on relatively nicely. And then I also need to get in the power steering line right there. We'll get that guy tightened down first. Like, so many little things when it comes to putting these together. So much little stuff. If you're using a stock turbo inlet, obviously you don't gotta go through all the bullshit that I just want. Actually, yeah, you do. To an extent. What do you say? Fun time? Fun time. We're not. That is a Subaru. Scoobaroo. I need one more 10 mil. I think I saw a brand new one over here somewhere. I did. We have a brand new alternator coming, so I'm gonna hold off on putting that in. I do want to toss this power steering line back on real quick. All right. And then the engine harness can come up and over. Blue connector is oil control valve. Right there, that guy is our cam position. And then that stuff's bulkhead and other stuff that I'm going to leave undone for right this second. So when it comes to plugging everything in on these older ones, on newer ones you're going to have 2 of these oil control valves down below. Well, you're not going to have 2, but you're going to have 2 plugins down there. You're going to have another cam position down there and another oil control valve. On these single AVCS cars, you've only got 1 oil control valve and 1 cam position on each cylinder head. You've got your TGV connection here, stock oil pressure switch, power steering pump switch, crank position sensor. Back here we've got our knock sensor, which we can plug in. It's this gray one. We've got throttle body and map sensor. We've got our little doodad that keeps freaking falling off. Secondary air pump, barometric pressure sensor, coil pack, cam position, injector, ground. So it's not too bad. I promise you'll be able to figure it out. When it comes to the electrical system, everything can only plug into one spot. So don't stress it too much. It can only all go in one spot. This engine bay is looking good. It's looking way better than it did. I wish someone didn't repaint that manifold, but what can you do, right? Plug in cam position there. Oil control valve. I cut the injectors so that way I could repin them. But of course I forgot my stuff at the shop when I was just there. How in the hell did I even get this guy wedged in there? Coil pack, cooperate with me. Don't do this to me. There we go. There's one. We can actually hook up the fuel lines here. So you look like you go there and there. And this will plug into, I can put that guy in. Brake booster. Bend this AC line up for now. There's that fuel line. You look like you go there. I want to say they go like that, or maybe they go like that. Maybe I should just Google it. That photo does not do justice. Hey, here we go. Which one of these is longer? The longer one's obviously going to go to the one that's pushed farther back, so it wouldn't make sense for a shorter one to have to reach as far on. There it is. Fuel lines hooked up. So we're going to have one of these for the boost controller, which I'll probably put the boost controller. I'm going to do the boost controller on the back one right here. So that back one will be our boost controller. We have 2 for AOS, so I'll do this one right here is AOS. Why am I not lubing these up as I'm putting them in? So this one right here will be AOS. We have this other bigger one as AOS also. These are 1/2 inch. Yep, right there. This guy we'll put in and then cap. So that one will cap AOS, 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 AOS to manifold, and then turbo inlet to boost controller. Easy enough, right? Not too bad. All right, now before we toss the throttle body on, we need a hose. So there's gonna be an arrow on this little valve, and the arrow points towards the intake manifold. There it is right there. So this side is going to go right here on the top of the AOS. And then the other side is going to route down back underneath all of this. Come up, and it's gonna go to this valve right here. And that, if I can get it on there, come on. And that is the breather line for the AOS. So that was not entirely too fun to put on, but we did it. And grab that clamp right there and slide it up and over the valve. A little bit easier to do that one. All right, now at this point, we can go ahead and toss our intake manifold back on. So we have a new throttle body gasket, thankfully. That was not missing from our kit. We got our throttle body bolts right here. I cleaned that guy out earlier, and our throttle body can go on right like so. There we go. This coolant line on right here. Normal pliers right there. Sweet. All right, so we got coolant line there. I want the map sensor and throttle body connectors, which got like pushed down there. This will go right there. Do I have this on upside down? Am I crazy? Or is this map sensor on backwards? The map sensor's on backwards because normally it goes around like that. Yeah, I'm not crazy. I thought I was crazy over here. Doesn't matter. I got a new map sensor for that anyways. There we go. Old map sensor, which I'm going to put this in the box because I do not want to lose that just in case we need that again. Cobb map sensor. Forza O-ring. Oh, don't drop that, Tanner. Map sensor going on. Plug in job, plug in job, plug in. Come on, there we go. Go ahead and grab our coupler for the throttle body and toss that on in our intercooler kit. There should be a reducer, here it is. So there should be a special coupler in there. Just like that. And then this guy. Look at that, man, it's looking like an engine bay again. Can I put the battery back in yet? Should I do that? Is there anything I need to do here? I don't think so. I think I can put the battery back in. Let's put the battery back in. I don't see any reason why the battery shouldn't go in right now. There we go. Looking more proper now. Battery tie downs. Those are in here. Right here, right here, and right there. And we need a 10mm nut. Look at that. They have a proper battery tie down now. No more zip ties. Coolant tank here should be able to go back on. It's broken from someone. That's cool. That's so nice of them. Oh my god, come on. Come on. There we go. There we go. Look at that. This coolant line. Can go there. And that one can go there. Oh yeah, dude, that's not going anywhere. Whew. Cool lines are on for the AOS. That's neato. Neato. At this point, I can tighten up the downpipe to the turbo. I gotta get the other coolant line for the turbo, which for some reason I have not done yet. And one of these is a wideband, which is this one. And we can go ahead and stick that sensor right into our downpipe. Downpipe has its O2 sensor. I've knocked out a couple things in here that are just kind of off camera. I hooked up these two AOS lines so they go from the turbo inlet underneath of the coolant reservoir here up to the AOS. I tossed in our coupler for the turbo. Our downpipe's all tightened up. I ran our wideband and everything like that inside of the car. I feel like I didn't really need to show you guys how to wire up gauges. I've got specific videos on that if you really want to look for it. So at this point, I want to get the intake in. We have a brand new alternator coming, so I'm holding off on throwing that in. I'm waiting for a PCV fitting also for our AOS, so that's all right. For now, we're going to jump over to the intake and get that in here. For the intake box to work with the intercooler piping, we need to cut a big, what was the word that you guys used last time? Football shape. We need to cut a football shape into this, so. That is totally not big enough. I gotta open this up more. There we go. Perfect. Now I can clean that up. Intake box. Cut for intercooler piping. That sucked. Oh, we should have a whole bunch of this trim somewhere. There it is. Boop. And then I'm gonna have to dust all this off afterwards, but that's all right. So this is how you get the from an intercooler piping to fit. A lot of people have asked me how you get it, and honestly, this is it's not a fun time. Let me say that much. As you guys can see, cutting up the box is kind of shitty, but and once we get this in, we can actually get the intercooler piping in too. At least for the hot side. This guy going his home now, and I need to take out that 12. There we go. And then this guy is going to snake down here. And I say the word snake loosely because what I mean by that is I'm going to force it down there. Actually went in surprisingly easy that time. So that 12 that we just took out, we can go ahead and put back in. I'm going to grab some pliers and kind of guide it down because I've dropped this bolt way too many times in the past. Grab some pliers, line up the holes. Like that. There's one side. That went in surprisingly easy, except my socket's down there now. That guy will go right in here. Intercooler pipe. That's the next thing I want, which is right there. And clamps. Do I need one? Yeah, I only need one. Clamp's gonna go on like that. intercooler pipe should be able to snake underneath all this. And he's in. He's in his home. Almost. Oh, there we go. Cheese Louise, man. Cheese Louise. It's in though. Ah, I fucking hate these clamps. We have our post-MAF hose right here. I've got this. What is that even for? That can't be for an intercooler pipe. So this will go in like so. I'm just gonna have to slide a clamp on this later. Actually, well, I have one more. I might as well just toss it on. Just give me that. I'd rather get this one on first. There is that one. Then we need this. Intake filter. We'll set right there for now. Our post-MAF hose, or our doodad here. MAF sensor. I have an OEM one right here that I think I'm gonna toss in for them. And they have a aftermarket replacement one, so if this one shits the bed for them, then we'll toss in the aftermarket one. It's just a third-party like AutoZone one, but at least this way they have an OEM sensor in here. I can slide that guy into the hose if it will go in to said hose. Now I'm gonna have to try to push this in as far as I can, just to be able, because the filter, there's no way the filter will fit right there without getting smushed. Will the filter fit? That's the question. Dude, there ain't no way. Oh, there is a way. There we go, look at that. A little bit smushed because we're right up against there, but that's as far as she'll go in. These are always a tight fit, but in my opinion, they're the best intake you can get for these cars. There we go, look at that. Come down here, grab our MAF sensor. Plug this guy in. Get our lid on, which that fell through the crack right here. Whoop. Cobb. Oh, fuck, there's a bracket that goes down here still. I forgot about that one. Because this... Yeah, we're missing the bracket that goes right there. That's fine. We can put that on real quick. That's somewhere back here. And the bracket will go right there, but I always gotta push this guy through. There we go. So we can go ahead and start getting this guy on. So we are in the future a little bit. Everything at this point is pretty much done. We left off getting that intake pipe in. We were waiting on the new alternator to show up, and it did, but it showed up damaged. So we're gonna return this one. I ran over to my shop and grabbed a spare one where oh, it's up there. I ran over to my shop, grabbed a spare one, so we're gonna put that one on here for the time being until the new one comes in, just to get this thing going so they can start driving it. I have already uploaded the base tune, and I did throw the bumper on and trimmed it up a little bit for the front mount. Each front mount's gonna be a little bit different for the amount of trimming that you're gonna have to do, so do keep that in mind if that is something that you will be doing. But I wanna disconnect the battery before I go ahead and put that alternator on, so that way that doesn't spark on me, because that's not a fun time getting shocked by a battery. We have our alternator here. This is one of my spares that we can go ahead and slide in here for the time being. There we go. It's kind of just chilling in there right now. Where did I put the hardware for? I put it all up here. There we go. Whew, thing did not want to go in. And then this piece goes on the back side, and it just kind of hooks around the alternator. And then hand thread that in to get it started. I need the long bolt for that, and that will go boop, just down like that. This guy threads into it. And then it goes through like so, with this guy going through this tab into the alternator. We'll grab our belt, which I believe I put in the trunk. So slide it down. Normally I get it on the power steering pump first, just because you gotta kind of snake that one in. Sometimes it's a little bit easier to come up and over like that. Get it on the alternator. And then snake your hand down there and just kind of push it on the crank. And then boom, we got our belt on. Now we can start tightening all that. That's better. There we go, now we have an alternator. Now we can come up here, plug our AC in. Right there, we can get this little loom guy put back through there. Now because this is my spare alternator, I need to find hardware for it. Plug that guy in, so I just need a 12mm nut. Alright, beautiful. Now we can hook up our battery, put coolant in it, and honestly at that point we should be good to start it. So we're going to put fluids in through the coolant expansion tank up here. So I brought my funnel with me from the shop. These make burping these cars way easier than trying to do it any other way I've seen people do. So you've got your little adapter piece that'll sit right there. You've got the doodad here that'll twist on. Pull that guy out, stick it in, then we can put coolant in that. I don't like to have anything in the cowl area. We're gonna have to build oil pressure before we start, which that shouldn't be too bad. Disconnect the crank, we'll hold the throttle at 100%, that'll cut fuel and it shouldn't start. So while that's doing its thing, I'm gonna snake my hand down here, disconnect the crank position. Disconnected, we're gonna go ahead and connect our battery back up. That is going to take a couple minutes, so I'm gonna keep putting coolant in and squeezing these hoses to get as much air out as I can and as much coolant in as I can. And then once we've gotten that point, we go ahead and start building oil pressure in this thing, then turn it over. Actually, look at that, it stopped right there. Reach down there and try to squeeze this lower radiator hose also. The majority of the air you're gonna find is gonna be in that lower hose. Yeah, you guys can see the coolant going in every time I get more air to come out. Hold the gas all the way down. We have an oil pressure gauge, so I'm just gonna monitor that. We're still at 0 oil pressure. Before I plug the crank back in, I'll show you guys. I just turned it over again as soon as I turned the camera off and put it away, and I did get oil pressure, so I'll do this one more time for you guys so that way you guys can see. So oil pressure gauge on the left, gas all the way down, clutch in. Look at that, oil pressure, 35, 30, 28, 25, it's going down. So we do have oil pressure. Coolant's been doing great burping itself while turning the car over. Honestly, that's kind of the best time to start burping the cooling system is when you are building oil pressure, because you can easily spin the water pump as you're cranking the car over. And as it's cranking over, the water pump will start pushing fluid all around. So it's honestly the best time to do it. So what we're gonna do is turn the heat all the way on max and on high, have it on defrost, so that way the cooling system can burp any bubbles out. And from there we should be good. So let's see if she'll start up. Blower fan sounds like it needs a little bit of love. And we should have liftoff. Look at that, baby. She lives. I might need to get more coolant because that thing is already sucking down more. Why the battery light's on, I don't know. It shouldn't be. That is a charging system fault. Could just be that the battery's low, to be honest. Or the fuse popped. Could be another reason. I'll check that in a minute. I'm gonna let it run for now, start getting out any air, and from there we just monitor. But dude, thing sounds good, sounds healthy. I got more coolant. It's burping. It's still throwing a charging system fault. We're just gonna let the car come up to temp. Once the thermostat opens, it's gonna allow more air out. We do have the cooling the cooling system, the heater core on full blast for defrost. That's gonna help purge out any air in the heater core. We're just gonna let this thing do its job. It's just gonna keep pushing air bubbles out for a little while, so we'll let her go. (11.6, 11.7). Honestly, it could just be a low battery. I had it on a trickle charger for a little while, but we'll see. It's a newborn. It's got to figure out how to walk again. Sounds good though. Sounds healthy. Exhaust doesn't sound bad either. That's not bad at all. The exhaust is kind of hung up with some zip ties right now because they're missing exhaust hangers. And the ones I bought took forever to ship and they're not even here yet. 11.7. Yeah, battery voltage is just hanging out, so I'm not going to stress it too much. I'm just going to let it run for the time being. Get out air bubbles. It's not bad. Thing looks a lot better than how it came in. When it came in, it was all sorts of janky. Looks nice now. The temp, in my opinion, is about 185. We're sitting at about 162 right now, so I do want to monitor that temperature as things do start to come up. Smells like fresh engine. The hell was that? Battery voltage has jumped up to 13, 14. Hey, look at that, charging light's gone. That was weird, but I'm guessing it was just low battery. Yeah, 14 volts now. Now it's charging as it should. That was weird. That was very weird. 201. Yeah, that was weird that the alternator started charging like that. It literally went from 12, 13, 14. Oh wow, why is coolant temp at 212, 214? 216. We're gonna shut that off. 217. Alright, we're gonna let this thing come back down in temp and then try again. Yeah, see, it's coming down now. Now I'm getting hot air out the heater core. I'm guessing there's an air bubble stuck in there. Yeah, because now the heater core, now it's blowing hot air. It was not before. It was cold. It was ice cold. Alright, I'm gonna watch it again. Yeah, that was like ice cold coming out of that heater core. No warning lights. 189. That alternator AC compressor is a bit loud, but 190. I want to make sure I can still feel hot air coming out. I think there's just a bubble. 198 still. I think I may have fixed boost leak because boost just jumped up to -7. Oh yeah, heat's going strong now. Let me get through burping this thing real quick, but that is essentially how you build a Subaru.
Overall, the car came out looking pretty good. It drives good. The owners are gonna pick it up in about an hour, but I hope this video helps. So that is gonna wrap it up for just a POV comprehensive guide of how to put a Subaru together, build an EJ, from taking a naked short block, putting heads on it, getting it in the car, all the accessories on there. There's obviously going to be differences between what I just did and maybe what you're doing or what other people are gonna do, because different parts are gonna bolt up differently, they're gonna mount differently. You may delete some stuff, you may add some stuff, so it will definitely vary. But this should be a good guide to get you through putting together your car, whether it be for the first time or if you're just using this as a reference. Now, if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to drop them down below below in the comment section. I will try my best to get back to as many as I can. And I will also link down below in the description a lot of the specialty tools that I used, maybe some of the parts I used as well, so we'll see. But with that, that's all I got for you guys on this one. If you like the video, you know what to do. Go ahead, hit that like button, turn it black, blue, green, yellow, purple, silver, sight, and whatever color it turns for you. And if you're not already subscribed to the channel and you want to be, I'll put it in one of these corners. No idea which one quite yet, but with that, I will catch you guys in the next one. So peace out, homies.